We're going to rank these networking tactics from number 5 being the most effective and number 1 being the least effective. Okay. Cold messaging the CEO on LinkedIn.
I'd say a 1.
Attend a local industry meeting.
5.
Ask a friend for a referral.
4.
Commenting on a recruiter's posts.
3.
Cold calling the office front desk.
2.
2. Awesome.
Okay, so we've got cold messaging CEOs at a 1, local events at a 5, and honestly, none of that is wrong. But it's not the full picture either. We know networking feels confusing right now, and it's not just you. The rules have shifted. So in this episode, we're moving past the old advice and getting into what actually works now.
I'm Jenn, a career coach and your go-to gal for all things career advice.
And I'm Priya. We've got your back as you take on the wild ride of job hunting.
Welcome to Job Search Stories.
So, Jenn, can you talk to me about how people can lean more into meaningful intention when reaching out for networking opportunities?
We're in a different era of networking now. The copy-paste approach where you connect with everyone, message in bulk, and hope something sticks isn't just ineffective, it can actually work against you. You can waste your time and energy by being unfocused. And people can feel the difference between a message that's written for them versus a message that's written for anyone. So intentionality really is your competitive advantage. With intentional networking, something I keep in mind is that 5 intentional outreaches beat 500 random ones. This really isn't just like feel-good advice. That's the strategy. A message that references someone's specific work, asks a question that only they can answer, and makes it clear that you actually know who they are is going to get you a response far more often than just a templated blast. The quality signals respect of someone's time. Volume can signal desperation. So choose quality every time. And just make sure that when you're reaching out, you want to lead with value, not just need. The most overlooked piece of intentional networking is reciprocity. Most people reach out when they need something, which immediately frames a relationship as transactional. Intentional networkers first ask themselves, what can I bring to the conversation? It might be a relevant article, a genuine compliment on somebody else's work, a connection they might find useful, or it's simply a thoughtful question that makes the other person think. So when you lead with value instead of asking for something, you change the entire dynamic. And it makes you far more memorable for it.
I'm really stuck on that quality over quantity because that's something we hear all the time in many aspects of our life. And it especially rings true when it comes to networking.
As we talk about networking, of course, one of the tactics that come to mind is attending a networking event. Do you think the networking event had its moment, or does showing up in person still matter?
I definitely think showing up in person still matters. And I think that in our post-COVID world, activity-based networking events are actually on the rise, contrary to popular belief. But I think they've taken a new shape. So instead of traditional mixers, cocktail nights, there's newer alternatives to networking. Escape rooms, sports groups, trivia nights, mixology classes. And again, as we talked about before, getting to know someone in a different non-professional setting like this can be really beneficial because you can find things you have in common beyond work. And let's be honest, people refer people who they like and whose work is good. And so I think that helps you achieve that by meeting people through an activity-based networking event rather than just sitting back and sending messages. I was recently at a networking event where they had us have dinner together, do an activity together. But during dinner, they had these little conversation starters. And one of them was what's some of the best advice you got but didn't take, which is a conversation starter I really liked because it kind of allowed you to talk a little personally about you and your career and maybe some of the pivots you've made. So I think it's important to remember activity-based networking events are still on the table. In person is still on the table. And I'd argue that it's one of the most genuine ways to make a connection.
I agree. I really like that conversation starter. I get a little social anxiety. I think a lot of us do. I just lean into what I like. And I pretty much always start with a compliment. I'm complimenting somebody on their shoes. I'm complimenting them on their outfit. I'm complimenting them on something they said that I thought was really insightful. And I think that those types of conversation starters do turn out to be really effective because you're immediately starting with a shared interest. And so as we think about the value of networking, you're wanting to build a relationship. So you're kind of already finding that connection point right there.
I did that the other day where I complimented someone on the way they had done their makeup. And I actually not only got a good connection out of it, but also some good makeup tips that I will now employ.
Now, Priya, I know we spent a lot of time talking about not cold messaging a million people. But there is a time and place for cold messaging. You just have to be intentional. Again, the goal here isn't trying to get something, it's trying to be remembered. So Priya, why do generic outreach messages fall flat right now? And what does it look like to actually lead with specificity instead?
I think people are inundated with messages on every device and every platform, and we're constantly being asked for things throughout our day. Being as specific as possible is always great, and taking the time to do that. Quality over quantity. It's better to take a long time to write 5 good messages than to just use AI to write a generic one and send it to a million people.
You just don't want to be generic because generic outreach falls flat because people can tell when they're just being mass targeted. And Forbes reported that 71% of consumers expect personalized interactions from brands and businesses, and professional outreach is no different. People respond when it feels like you actually know who they are. Reaching out to people can feel awkward, but there's so much power in appealing to someone's emotional side. How do you think someone can actually appeal to an outreach's emotional side?
Research. It's absolutely essential to research the person you're reaching out to. Get to know their history. Did they also struggle with something? Did they go to your alma mater, like you mentioned? Did they share personal detail about their history in an article or a podcast or post that you related to? Or are they part of a specific organization? I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me based on the fact that I used to run our Parents and Caregivers IBRG as a way to start chatting, and it's where I've also made a ton of connections. When you hear from someone who you feel like has researched who you are, wants to know more about you, and is looking for help because you have a specific experience or skill, it makes you much more inclined to want to answer their message. Get specific and try to find a connection to the person you're contacting. That's going to go a really long way.
Do you think the most effective networking is actually happening when people aren't trying to network at all? Like, what does modern day networking really look like?
It reminds me of this Reddit post I recently read, and it says, networking is mostly a passive thing that just happens as you live life and progress through your career. They're your college classmates that you're on good terms with, grad school classmates that you're on good terms with, former and current coworkers and mentors that you get along with. If one of your former work friends mentioned to you they're interested in working in X, and you knew a buddy who's looking to hire someone in X, would you pass that person's info along? That's networking. This post makes a really good point. And this is a story I tell often, but the way I started working at Indeed was exactly because of something like this. I was spending time with a friend and was talking about how I was looking to re-enter the workforce full-time post-parenthood. I was talking about some of the things I was looking for in a position and a company. And she said to me, well, why don't you just work at Indeed? I'm happy to refer you. And so I think that's a really good example of I wasn't hanging out with her to specifically ask for a referral for a job. It just happened organically. And so I think there is a large part of networking that does happen organically. We talked about that. You form a connection with someone, you stay in touch, and then they talk about you in rooms you're not in or refer you to a job that they think you'd be great for. So I think there's a huge element of that. But I do think that intentional networking is still required, whether it's someone you are interested in working with now or interested in working with the future, or is someone you just naturally have a connection with. I think it's important to approach it not only as here are the friends and connections I have now, but it's always beneficial to make new connections as well.
I think there are some real key words that stick out from this Reddit post. When it's talking about the type of people that you keep in contact with, they use phrases like people that you're on good terms with, or those coworkers and mentors that you get along with. The positive connection, that's so important. I've got a group chat with an entire group of people that I worked with in the past where every 3 to 6 months, somebody just sends a nice hey, checking in, thinking of you guys, or hey, do you remember this? That was a really fun time. And I feel very confident that if I was looking for an opportunity or needed a connection, I could go to anybody within that chat because it's still warm. These are people that I still feel really connected with and had a great relationship with.
So, Jen, do most networking opportunities actually come from people you know well or from those in-between connections who just recognize your name?
It's genuinely both, but if you're asking where the surprise opportunities tend to come from, from, it's actually not from your closest connections. It's from the people in the middle, the ones that know your name, have a positive impression of you, or just happen to be in the right place at the right time. Because you have to remember, your closest connections can have limits. The people you know best could be your close friends, your family, maybe tight colleagues, but they're often running in the same circles that you are. They know the same people you do. They're hearing about the same opportunities that you're hearing, and they're moving in the same professional world. So that's really valuable, but it can also limit the number of new opportunities that you're exposed to. So there's some real magic to be found in the middle, or what's often referred to as weak ties. There is research to back up this concept. Sociologist Mark Granovetter's work on the strength of weak ties found that people are more likely to find jobs through acquaintances than close friends because acquaintances move in different networks and carry information that you don't already have. So the person who recognizes your name but doesn't know you well can be a bridge to something new. This research was done in 1973, which was even before I was born, but it is considered to be foundational research on social networking. And so I would argue that it still applies today. Building a diverse network of acquaintances is essential for career growth and information gathering, but you have to be willing to maintain the relationship. I think that's really key.
It doesn't have to be like I'm talking to you every week, but maybe I'm checking in once a quarter.
It's about being familiar. Familiarity is its own form of trust. You don't have to be somebody's best friend for them to go to bat for you. You just have to be somebody that they remember positively. So that short-term project that you worked on, maybe you met somebody at a convention or a conference and you had a great conversation, or it could be somebody that you engaged with consistently over time. Those moments are when familiarity really start to add up. And so when an opportunity surfaces, people recommend the names they trust, and that trust doesn't always require depth. It just requires a track record of showing up well, even if it's briefly. I've got personal experience with this. It's how I got my job at Indeed. I reconnected with somebody that I'd worked with on a short-term project. And when this opportunity became available, she had already moved to Indeed. And so I reached out to her. That became a referral, and that ultimately led to a job. If you're going to walk away from this episode with just a few takeaways, I would go with remembering that networking isn't just about outcomes. It's not just about getting the job. It's about building familiarity over time and really focus on depth, not volume. We're talking quality over quantity. What matters now is not how many people you reach, but how genuinely you connect. The small moments count, the thoughtful messages, the familiar name, the interactions that felt real. Even when nothing seems to come from it right away, those moments are stacking in ways you can't even see. So keep showing up for yourself. Stay intentional and trust that the right doors tend to open for the people who feel real, not just visible. If today's episode reminded you that progress often happens quietly in the background, follow Job Search Stories, leave us a rating, and visit Indeed's YouTube channel for more tools to help you keep showing up and moving forward. Thanks for tuning in. We've entered the
Just rambling. Ignore me. I was trying to be funny. It didn't work. Go, Jen, go.
intentional. It was you as a child. I can absolutely see it.